The desert wind howled across the plains like a dying animal, dry and cracked, carrying the memory of old blood. Jesse McCade rode straight into it, coat flapping behind him like wings of a ghost. His hat was pulled low, shadowing a face weathered by time and violence. His eyes, gray as gunmetal, searched the horizon not for gold nor vengeance, but for a brother who vanished 20 years earlier beneath smoke and screaming. The town of Redstone Gulch shimmered ahead, built from sun-bleached wood and regret. It looked like a place forgotten by time and remembered only by the vultures that circled overhead. Jesse dismounted slowly, his boots stirring up little eddies of dust. A man doesn't just walk into a town like this without feeling watched, and Jesse knew better than to ignore the twitch of danger in his gut. He tied his horse outside the saloon, ignoring the sideways glances of men on the porch, lean men with hollow cheeks and pistols slung too low. He stepped through the swinging doors and silence greeted him. Cards paused mid-deal. A bottle clinked against a glass like a warning. Jesse didn't flinch. He moved like a man who'd been through worse because he had. Inside it smelled of stale beer, pipe smoke and worn-out ambition. His eyes caught the piano first. Not the keys or the sound but the woman playing it. She sat straight-backed, fingers dancing across chipped ivory with grace that didn't belong to a place like this. Her hair was dark, coiled loosely at her neck. Her face was beautiful but not in the way men usually met. It was the kind of beauty born from survival. She didn't look at Jesse but he could feel her noticing him just the same. He ordered whiskey, rough and quick, then leaned back at the bar, eyes tracking the room. The bartender, a rail-thin man with a missing ear, poured without speaking. Jesse drank, savoring the burn, letting it clear the road dust from his chest. He listened, not to the silence but to what lay beneath it. Conversation stilled, tensions thick. That's when the man entered. Elias Delaney filled the doorway like bad weather. Broad-shouldered, scar running across his chin, he wore a gun belt heavy with purpose. The room snapped back into motion as if someone had taken their finger off a trigger. He looked at Jesse with a familiarity that unsettled, then nodded once to the woman at the piano. She didn't return the gesture. Jesse stayed still. Elias stepped toward the bar, took a slow drink, then turned. "Don't reckon I've seen you before," he said, voice low and steady. Jesse didn't blink. "Just passing through." "That's so." Elias let the words hang, then smiled without warmth. "Folks don't pass through Redstone Gulch unless they're running from something or looking to cause it." "I ain't looking for trouble," Jesse replied. Elias studied him. "Shame. Around here, trouble tends to find you either way." He downed his drink and left. Jesse watched him go, then looked back at the woman. Her eyes met his this time just briefly. And in that look was a strange, silent warning, one Jesse didn't yet understand. That night, Jesse found lodging at a shack near the edge of town, nothing more than 4 walls and a cot. He lay awake, eyes on the ceiling, fingers brushing the edge of an old locket around his neck. Inside was a faded picture of 2 boys, one smiling, the other with a scraped knee and defiant eyes. Kill. Taken by raiders when they were just kids, separated in the smoke. Jesse had spent 2 decades riding trails that always seemed to end in empty graves and false leads. But something about Redstone Gulch felt off. Felt like it was hiding something. The next day brought heat and stares. Jesse asked quiet questions in the general store, the stables and the jailhouse, but answers were scarce. Caleb's name got him nothing. A description got him shrugs. One old man, half blind and drunk by noon, muttered something about a boy taken in by desert riders years ago. Might have come back wearing a different name. Jesse returned to the saloon at dusk, drawn not by thirst but by the woman. She was there again, playing soft melodies that barely rose above the murmur of voices. This time Jesse approached her. "You play like you're somewhere else," he said. She stopped playing, looked up. "Maybe I am." "I'm Jesse." "Mariah." They shook hands. Hers was calloused, firm. She wasn't the type who needed rescuing. "You married to Delaney?" Jesse asked before he could stop himself. She hesitated. He'd say yes. "I'd say it's more complicated than that." Jesse nodded slowly. "Why stay?" Her eyes were tired. "Because sometimes surviving means staying in the fire long enough to become flame." They said nothing for a moment. Then Mariah began playing again, slow and sad. Jesse sat nearby, listening, wondering how many parts of her were hidden behind each note. Elias didn't return that night or the next. Jesse took to walking the town at night, ears open, eyes sharper than the stars above. He noticed men watching him. He noticed Mariah's bruised wrist when she brought drinks to the tables. He noticed the way she walked a little more carefully when certain men were nearby. On the fourth day, Jesse overheard two ranch hands talking about Elias. He wasn't always called Delaney, one muttered. Used to be some desert orphan, took the name after he killed the man who raised him. Jesse's blood turned cold. He pressed them for details. They shrugged. Just stories. Just rumors. That night he asked Mariah again. Elias, he ever mention who raised him? She frowned. Said he was taken in by raiders, then left them when he was 16. Took a new name. No real past. Why? Jesse didn't answer. His heart beat too fast. Caleb had been taken by raiders. Mariah watched him. You think you know him from somewhere? I think I might, Jesse said barely above a whisper. She reached out, her fingers brushing his arm. If you're right, then you've got a choice coming. He nodded. I know. They sat in silence. Outside, a dry wind kicked up dust. Inside, something deeper stirred. The next evening, Elias returned, face sour and eyes sharp. He saw Jesse and Mariah together, not touching but not far apart. He said nothing, just walked over, sat beside her, and rested a possessive hand on her shoulder. She flinched. Jesse stood. Elias rose slowly. You looking for something, stranger? Just answers, Jesse said. Wrong place for that, Elias replied. This town's only got lies and graves. They stared at each other for a long moment. That night, Jesse sat by the river just outside town, the locket in his hand. He opened it again, stared at the faces. The memories were clear now, Caleb's laugh, the sound of running feet, the feel of warm ash falling like snow. Could be Elias. Or it could be coincidence. A twig snapped behind him. Jesse turned, hand on his gun. Mariah stood there, holding a shawl. You shouldn't be alone out here, she said. Especially not with him watching. I ain't scared of Elias, Jesse said. I didn't say scared, she replied. I said alone. She sat beside him. The river whispered past them. Jesse didn't speak. You didn't have to. I've thought about running, Mariah whispered. But I got a daughter. She's 6. She doesn't understand fear the way I do. To her, Elias is just a shadow that walks too loud. Jesse's voice was low. I didn't know. Most don't. I keep her hidden. I teach her music instead of silence. It's the best I can do. Jesse nodded. You deserve better. I used to think that, she said. Now I just hope she will. They sat in silence again, a different kind. A kind that understood. When Jesse returned to town, his resolve had changed. He wasn't just looking for a brother anymore. He was standing between a man and the people he hurt. Whether Elias was blood or not, it no longer mattered. But the truth was coming, faster than the morning. And not all truths can be outrun. Not in a place like Redstone Gulch. The morning sun over Redstone Gulch came slow and sharp, like a blade easing into bone. Jesse stood outside the boarding shack, staring out toward the town as the wind picked up. It carried with it the smell of dust, wood smoke, and something else. Tension, bitter and growing. He hadn't slept. Too many questions scratched at the walls of his mind. Elias Delaney, the man who might be Caleb, was dangerous. That much was clear. But was he his brother? Could the wild, wounded boy Jesse had once protected truly have become this cruel, watchful man? And if so, what then? Inside the saloon, the day began with whiskey and whispers. Men leaned in close, passing stories like poison. Word was Elias had a job planned, a quiet meeting with hired guns from out east. No one knew the details, only that it meant blood and it paid well. Jesse listened from a shadowed corner, every nerve alert. Mariah wasn't behind the piano today. The keys sat still like a grave too long unattended. He found her behind the saloon, near the back steps, lighting a small fire in a tin drum. Smoke curled upward as she dropped a torn handkerchief into the flames. Her face looked harder this morning. Resigned. He's leaving tomorrow, she said before Jesse could ask. Going out to the ridge. I heard him say he'll be back with gold and answers. Jesse stepped closer. You think he's smuggling? I think he's killing, she replied flatly. He doesn't make deals. He makes graves. Her voice caught on the last word. Jesse noticed the tight grip of her fingers around her coat. He also saw the way she kept glancing toward the alley, alert, protective. And that's when he heard it, a child's cough, faint from behind a stack of crates. Mariah followed his gaze but didn't move. She's mine, she said softly. Her name's Lily. She doesn't come out unless I say. Not with him around. Jesse nodded, absorbing the weight of that trust. Does she know who he really is? She knows enough to be afraid of shadows. Mariah turned her face toward the fire. And she knows never to make noise when the piano's not playing. Jesse clenched his fist. The urge to confront Elias right there was strong, but he knew better. This wasn't a straight shootout. This was a hunt. And the prey didn't even know it was being tracked. That evening, Jesse followed Elias from a distance, past the blacksmiths and the dried-up well, out toward the old mining trail. The sun had begun its descent, throwing the town in a golden haze. Elias walked with purpose, boots crunching gravel, coat fluttering. He stopped once to speak to a man near the edge of town, short, mean-eyed, and armed. The two exchanged a few words before heading east toward the ridge. Jesse waited until they disappeared from sight, then rode out along a parallel trail. The ridge was an old outlaw haunt, full of broken stone and jagged paths. By the time he reached a bluff overlooking their meeting spot, the sun was bleeding out across the sky. Below, Elias stood with a stranger, speaking to two more riders. Their voices were low, but Jesse caught enough. Weapons, shipment, kill anyone in the way. One rider handed over a map, and Elias tucked it into his coat. The meeting ended with a handshake, the kind made in hell. Jesse backed away carefully, mounting his horse in silence. He didn't make it 5 steps before he heard the sharp click of a revolver. "Didn't your mama teach you not to spy on men with secrets?" The voice came from behind a boulder. Another one of Elias's men, young, twitchy, full of bad judgment. Jesse didn't speak. He turned slowly, hands open. The kid raised the pistol higher, smile twitching. "Gonna be rich, you know. All of us. And you? You're just a wrinkle in the road." Jesse moved fast. A single step, a twist, and the revolver fired wild. He slammed the kid's hand against the rock, disarming him, then drew his own weapon in a blur. The boy dropped, groaning, his shoulder split open but alive. "Next time," Jesse said coldly, "you point a gun, make sure you're ready to shoot first." He left the boy groaning and bleeding and rode hard back to town. The wind stung his face, but it couldn't cool the heat rising in his chest. Elias wasn't just a danger to Mariah and Lily. He was planning something that would spill blood across the desert. And Jesse was out of time. He burst into Mariah's quarters behind the saloon. She looked up, startled, as Lily ducked behind a curtain. "We've got to move," Jesse said. "Tonight. Pack what you need. He's setting something up at the ridge, arms trade, maybe worse. I caught one of his boys watching me." Mariah hesitated, then nodded. "I've had bags packed for 3 years." They moved fast. Jesse borrowed a wagon from the stables under cover of darkness, stacking it with food, water, and a saddlebag full of ammunition. Mariah gathered Lily, pressing a kiss to the child's forehead. The girl clung to her mother, eyes wide and silent. As they loaded up, Jesse paused. "When did you first meet him?" "Elias." Mariah climbed into the wagon seat. 7 years ago. He saved me from a man who was worse. Said he knew what it meant to lose a family. I believed him. For a while he was good to me. But men like that, they run out of decency." Jesse climbed up beside her. "Did he ever mention a brother?" She frowned. "Only once. Said he lost him in a fire. Would have been just a boy. Never said his name." A chill worked down Jesse's spine. He looked out into the dark. "Then it's true." Mariah's voice was cautious. "You think he's your brother?" "I know he is." The wagon creaked as they moved out of Redstone Gulch, its wheels whispering across the sand. Jesse didn't look back. Neither did Mariah. They rode through the night, avoiding the main trails. By dawn, they reached a dry riverbed where they could rest briefly. Lily slept in her mother's lap, clutching a small cloth-wrapped music box. Jesse sat a few yards away, sharpening his knife on a whetstone, eyes watching the horizon. He knew it wasn't over. Elias would follow. He'd smell betrayal like smoke and chase it until the wind ran out. Mariah joined him quietly. "You're sure about who he is?" Jesse nodded. "The scar on his chin. Caleb got that trying to jump a fence when we were 10. I told him he couldn't fly. He said he didn't need wings." She exhaled. "So what now?" "I find a way to stop him. Before he hurts anyone else. You'll have to kill him." Jesse's hand paused on the blade. "I already did. I just didn't know it yet." She touched his arm gently. "You don't have to do this alone." He looked at her, really looked. "Yes, I do." That afternoon, while the sun climbed, they found shelter in the canyon south of town. Jesse knew it was only a matter of time before Elias tracked them. He was clever, resourceful, and cruel, and if he truly remembered Jesse, he'd come not just with bullets but with pain. By sundown, the silence was broken by hoofbeats in the distance. 3 riders. One of them moved like vengeance wrapped in flesh. Jesse stepped into the open, revolver holstered but ready. Behind him, hidden in the rocks, Mariah clutched Lily close, her breath slow and shallow. The riders stopped just 50 yards out. Elias rode forward alone. "I figured it was you," he called. "You had the same eyes. Same damned fire." Jesse didn't respond. Elias smiled, wide and bitter. "You looking for Caleb? You found him. He died in a fire 20 years ago. What came out of those ashes, that wasn't a brother." Jesse drew slow, steady. "Maybe not. But he was still mine to find." Elias dismounted. His hand hovered near his gun. "You got a choice, Jesse. Hand her over. Walk away. I'll let you live. I've seen the way you let people live. You're not strong enough to beat me." "I don't have to be," Jesse said quietly. "I just have to be the man you left behind." For a moment, everything stilled. Then Elias moved. The desert roared to life. The first shot cracked like thunder across the canyon, sharp and mean. Jesse dove sideways behind a jutting rock, the bullet carving air where his head had just been. Dust exploded around him as Elias's men opened fire, rifles barking in quick succession. The echoes bounced off the canyon walls, angry and loud. Jesse kept low, gritting his teeth as he slid behind a ridge and drew his revolver. His breath came fast, but his mind was calm, controlled. He knew Elias wouldn't stop until either he or Jesse lay cold in the dirt. This wasn't about Mariah anymore, not just. It was about 2 boys who once held hands in a burning barn, promising they'd find each other again. That promise had come true in the cruelest way. He spotted one of Elias's men flanking left, moving fast between boulders. Jesse squeezed the trigger, once, twice. The man dropped, groaning, blood blooming dark through his shirt. Jesse didn't wait. He moved, shifting positions, heart hammering like a drumbeat of war. The second gunman shouted Elias's name, panic creeping into his voice. Jesse silenced him with a shot to the chest. The canyon fell momentarily quiet. Only Elias remained. Jesse stepped out slowly, his boots crunching gravel. He held his gun low, eyes locked on the figure standing 30 feet away. Elias had removed his coat. The sun caught the sweat on his brow, the scar on his chin glowing faintly red. He looked almost human in that light. "You always were the fast one," Elias muttered. Jesse's voice was rough. "You remember now?" "I remembered the minute I saw your face," Elias said. "Didn't believe it. Thought fate wouldn't be that cruel." "It wasn't fate. It was you." Elias's jaw tightened. "You think I asked for this? I was a kid, Jesse. They took me, beat me, broke me. Then they taught me how to survive." Jesse stepped closer. "You think that makes you right? Makes you clean?" "No," Elias said. "It makes me alive." A long silence stretched between them, filled only by the wind and the crackle of heat rising off the stones. Jesse's grip on his revolver never loosened. Neither did Elias's. "I looked for you," Jesse said finally. "I spent years. Hunted ghosts. Wrote your name in the dirt every time I buried someone who might have been you." Elias looked away. "I didn't want to be found. You didn't want to be saved. There wasn't anything left to save." Jesse's voice dropped. "Mariah. Lily. You were supposed to protect them." Elias flinched. "I did." "No," Jesse said. "You caged them." Elias stepped forward, gun still drawn. "You don't know what it's like, Jesse. Living with rage like a second skin. Waking up every day with someone else's screams in your ears. I tried to outrun it. I couldn't." "I'm not here to kill you," Jesse said softly. "I'm here to finish what we started in that fire. If you've still got a soul, give them a chance to live without fear. Let go." Elias laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think you're better than me? You've killed same as I have. I never enjoyed it." That landed hard. Jesse saw it in Elias's face. For a moment, the younger version of his brother, bloodied but innocent, flickered behind the mask of this man. Then Elias raised his gun. Jesse fired first. The bullet struck Elias in the shoulder, spinning him back with a grunt. He crashed to the ground, breath rasping. Jesse walked over slowly, gun still aimed. Elias didn't move to fight again. His blood soaked the dirt, dark and vivid. "You gonna finish it?" Elias asked, coughing. "No," Jesse said. "But I won't let you come near them again." Elias turned his head, eyes dimming. "I don't think I'm walking away from this, brother." Jesse crouched beside him, silent for a moment. Then he took out the locket from around his neck. He opened it and held it in front of Elias's face. 2 boys smiled from inside. Elias looked. His breath caught. Damn, he whispered. I almost made it back. Jesse stayed until Elias passed out from blood loss. Then carefully he walked back to where Mariah and Lily waited in the rocks. Mariah stepped forward immediately, eyes searching his face. Is it done? He's still breathing, Jesse replied. Barely. Do we run? No. Not anymore. They loaded the wagon again and headed toward a nearby town, Bent Hollow, far enough from Redstone Gulch that Elias wouldn't find them if he lived. They rode in silence for miles, the desert slowly opening into cracked fields and stunted trees. The landscape softened, but Jesse's mind remained sharp, restless. At camp that night, Lily curled beside her mother, her small hands clutched around that music box. Jesse sat by the fire, turning Elias's map over in his hands. The arms trade Elias had tried to broker, it wouldn't end with him. Others would follow, snakes slithering in through cracks in the lawless land. Mariah joined him quietly, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Thank you, she said. For what? For not becoming him. Jesse gave her a tired smile. Some days I thought I might. She studied him for a moment. You're not like him. I was raised with him. Doesn't mean you stayed there. They sat in silence again, the fire flickering between them. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes howled. Jesse looked up at the stars. I didn't just lose him back then, he said. I lost myself too. Spent 20 years trying to patch the hole. And now? He shrugged. Now I know the hole never really closes. You just learn to carry it better. She leaned in close, her shoulder brushing his. Maybe we carry it together? Jesse didn't answer. But he didn't pull away. By morning they reached Bent Hollow. A small town, not much more than a general store, a church and a schoolhouse, but it had the thing Jesse hadn't seen in years, peace. No men eyeing you from doorways. No blood on the street. Just people moving about their lives with ordinary urgency. They found a room at the inn and Mariah enrolled Lily at the school. Jesse picked up work at the blacksmith's, hammering out horseshoes and wagon bolts. His hands stayed busy but his thoughts wandered often. He kept the locket close, worn now but still holding the memory. Weeks passed. Bent Hollow remained quiet. Mariah smiled more. Lily laughed. Jesse tried. Every day he tried a little harder. One evening he sat on the porch, watching the horizon glow with a dying sun. Mariah joined him, her hands stained with flour from baking. Do you think he'll come? Jesse shook his head. If he survives, he won't follow. Not after what he saw. Mariah hesitated. What did he see? Hope, Jesse said. And what it cost to hold on to it. She nodded slowly, then reached for his hand. He let her take it. The wind was softer here. The earth kinder. Still, Jesse knew the West didn't forget. It never did. But for now there was quiet. For now there was a woman, a girl, and a man learning to live again. And somewhere, far away, in a canyon washed clean by blood and time, lay the remains of a brother who had once dreamed of wings. The story wasn't over. But the page had turned. The days in Bent Hollow rolled by slow and warm. Jesse learned to wake to the scent of fresh bread and not gunpowder. He no longer flinched at sudden noises, though he still kept a rifle leaned near the door. Old habits didn't die easy, but they did learn to sleep now and then. He had no illusions about peace being permanent. It never was in the West, but for the first time in years he wasn't running. Not from bullets. Not from ghosts. Mariah flourished in the quiet. She baked for the town and played the church piano on Sundays, her fingers moving with the grace of someone rediscovering life. Lily too grew brighter. Her laughter became a familiar sound in the schoolyard, and she stopped clinging to her mother's skirts when strangers walked by. Jesse watched it all with a strange ache in his chest, part joy, part guilt. He knew he'd brought a storm to them. And even if the skies were calm now, the memory of thunder never left. He still had the map Elias had carried. Folded and worn, it sat hidden beneath a loose board in the floor. At night, Jesse would take it out and stare at the routes, the symbols drawn in dark ink, trying to understand what his brother had truly been chasing. It wasn't just guns. It was a movement, a web stretching across counties, reaching into rail lines, law offices, militia groups. Elias had been a part of something larger than greed. He'd been preparing for war. Jesse hadn't spoken of it to Mariah. She deserved calm. And besides, he didn't know what to say. How could he explain that even in death, or near enough to it, his brother still had the power to shake the ground beneath him? But then, one morning, everything changed. It was Lily who saw him first. She ran into the house breathless, cheeks flushed red from play, her voice small but sharp. "Mama, There's a man at the edge of town. He looks like Jesse but different. Jesse froze. He dropped the coffee mug in his hand and didn't even flinch when it shattered on the floor. He was already moving. He stepped onto the porch, eyes narrowing toward the ridge. Dust blew lazily along the horizon. And there, clear as day, stood a rider on a lean, dark horse. He didn't move, just watched. Jesse's stomach turned cold. He stepped off the porch and toward the church bell, pulling the rope. 3 hard rings, Bent Hollow's warning signal. The townsfolk would think it was bandits or worse. They'd gather rifles, barricade doors. But Jesse knew better. This wasn't a raid. This was unfinished business. He rode out alone just before noon toward the ridge where the figure had been. By the time he got there, the rider was gone, but the signs remained, hoof prints in a slow arc, a cigarette still burning in the sand. Whoever it was had wanted to be seen. To send a message. Jesse turned and followed the trail. It led east toward the ghost town of Pine Hook, long abandoned after the silver dried up. As he rode, his thoughts spiraled. Was it Elias? Had he survived the gunshot, crawled away like a snake into another hole? Or was it someone else, someone connected to the men he'd met at the ridge? Men who'd lost money, power, partners? When Jesse reached Pine Hook, the sun had already begun its descent. Shadows stretched long across broken windows and collapsed rooftops. He entered the main street slow, boots stirring ash and dry leaves. A voice called out from the saloon. "Nice of you to come, brother." Jesse stiffened. Elias stepped into the doorway, arms still in a sling, pale and thinner than before but alive. And standing beside him was someone new, a man in a black coat with eyes like frostbite and a face Jesse didn't recognize. "You're surprised?" Elias said, smiling without joy. "I'm hard to kill. You should have remembered that." Jesse didn't raise his weapon. "Not yet. You should have stayed gone." "I did. For a while. Let the pain fade. Let the dreams return. But then I remembered, this world doesn't change just because you want it to." Jesse shifted his stance. "Who's he?" The man in black stepped forward. "Name's Mercer. You killed 3 of my men back at the ridge." Jesse nodded. "They had guns pointed at a woman and a child. I don't regret it." "Oh, I don't expect you to," Mercer said almost kindly. "But actions bring consequence." Elias interrupted, stepping forward. "Mercer helped me when I had nothing left but blood and a name. He showed me there's still a place for men like me, men who lost everything and want to take something back." "You lost yourself," Jesse said. "That's not something anyone can give back to you." Elias's voice grew low. "You think you're better than me because you carried a locket and stayed clean. But you're a killer too, Jesse. The only difference is I never lied about who I became." Jesse finally drew. The revolver gleamed in the dying sun. "You came for Mariah?" Elias laughed. "I came for truth. And I came to make you choose." "What choice?" Mercer stepped between them. "He means Lily." Jesse's face darkened. "She's not yours," Elias said. "She never was. But she might be mine." Mariah's words echoed in Jesse's memory. "He saved me from someone worse. He said he'd lost a family. Had she known even then? Had she seen traces of him in Lily's face?" "She's not a pawn," Jesse said, voice taut. "No," Elias agreed. "She's a legacy." Mercer looked amused. "Either you let him come back, take his place at your side, or we burn Bent Hollow to the ground. One man can't stop us." "Not now." Jesse's gaze never wavered. "Then you've forgotten the West." Before Mercer could answer, Jesse fired. Mercer fell, shot clean through the throat, collapsing in silence. Elias roared and drew, but Jesse was faster. Their shots echoed as 1, 2, 3. Jesse hit Elias in the leg, then the side. Elias's return shot grazed Jesse's ribs, but he didn't fall. He rushed forward, grabbed Elias by the coat, and slammed him into the saloon wall. Blood poured from Elias's mouth. His breathing was shallow, ragged. "You've got one chance left," Jesse said, holding him up. "Don't make me take it." Elias coughed, then smiled, weak and bitter. "I always wanted to see the ocean. Never made it. You're not dead yet. I will be. I can feel it. You ended me before. This was just my ghost coming home." Jesse lowered him to the ground. "You could have been anything." "So could you," Elias whispered. And then he closed his eyes. Jesse buried him beneath the twisted old tree just outside Pine Hook, where the wind carried the smell of dry sage and sorrow. He didn't mark the grave with a name, just a smooth stone. Then he rode back. Mariah met him at the edge of town. She didn't ask what had happened, just looked at him, searching for something in his expression. When she didn't find it, she took his hand. Lily stood behind her, quiet. Jesse knelt and opened his arms. She ran to him, burying her face in his chest. Later, as the town settled again and the stars lit the sky, Jesse sat alone on the porch, watching the horizon. The fire inside crackled. Mariah played a tune on the piano, soft, like lullabies remembered from another life. The West didn't forgive and it didn't forget. But sometimes, it allowed a man to stand still long enough to feel the wind on his face without fearing it carried death. Sometimes that was enough to keep living. The days after Elias's burial passed like the quiet before a storm, still on the surface but trembling underneath. Jesse went back to work, hands blistered from the forge, yet it felt different now. Everything did. The town moved as it always had, shopkeepers bartering, children skipping stones, but Jesse felt a silence in the air, a hush that hinted not at peace but at waiting. Mariah sensed it too. She watched him more closely, as if measuring the weight in his shoulders, the shadows behind his eyes. At night, when she reached for his hand beneath the quilt, she found it cold, clenched in sleep. Some ghosts didn't speak. Some just watched. Then, 3 days after Elias was put in the ground, the letter came. It arrived folded tight in the saddlebag of a riderless horse that wandered into Bent Hollow's north pasture. No brand, no dust, no blood. Just a pale gray horse carrying a message written in a hand Jesse didn't recognize. But the seal he knew, the crest carved into the brass ring Elias had once worn. Mariah stood nearby when he opened it. She didn't ask what it said. She didn't need to. "They're coming," Jesse murmured. "How many?" "Enough." He folded the letter slowly and looked out toward the edge of town. The note was short, blunt, and burned into his brain. Asterisk, your brother was one of many. You buried him, but you didn't kill the cause. You took from us. We're coming to take everything back. Asterisk. Jesse didn't sleep that night. He sat on the porch, rifle across his lap, watching the stars disappear one by one. Before sunrise he rang the bell again, this time not for warning but for preparation. The town gathered, slow at first, confused, then alarmed. When Jesse spoke, there was no tremor in his voice, no panic, only purpose. "They're not after money," he said. "Not after revenge. They want to wipe this place clean, erase it. Because we stood between them and what they wanted. Because we mattered more than their plans." The sheriff, an old man named Dillard who hadn't drawn his gun in 10 years, stepped forward. "What are we talking about, son? A few gunslingers?" "No," Jesse said. "An army." The townsfolk murmured, some skeptical, others scared. Dillard scratched his chin. "Why come after us?" "Because my brother was their voice," Jesse said. "He died here. That makes this place a message." And so the town prepared. They boarded up windows, sharpened tools, posted lookouts on the ridge. Jesse taught them how to shoot, how to breathe through fear. Even Lily helped, passing water, fetching nails. She didn't cry. She didn't complain. She just watched her mother and Jesse and mimicked the way they stood together. On the second night, a scout returned, face pale, breath ragged. "They're near," he gasped. 20 riders. Maybe more. All of them dressed black as sin. They ain't sneaking in. They're marching like they own the dirt. The sun rose on the third day with a heavy sky. Clouds swelled over the mountains, thick and gray. Jesse stood at the edge of town with his rifle, eyes fixed on the pass. Mariah came to him, her shotgun strapped to her back. He looked at her, that familiar ache in his chest. "You could take Lily and run," he said quietly. She shook her head. "Run where? There's no safe west left." He nodded. He'd known her answer before he asked. Then the thunder of hooves came, distant at first, then louder, until it felt like the ground itself would split. The riders emerged like shadows, black coats flapping, rifles raised. Their leader wore no hat, no mask, just a pale face and dark eyes like oil on water. Jesse stepped forward. "I'm the one you want," he called. "Let the town go." The leader stopped, tilting his head. "You speak for them?" "I stand for them," Jesse replied. "Same way Elias once stood for you." "Elias was a weapon," the man said. "We forged him. You broke him. Now we break you." They didn't wait. The first volley hit like lightning, bullets kicking up dirt, splintering wood. Jesse dove behind a trough, returned fire. Behind him the town roared to life. Windows opened, barrels emerged, and Bent Hollow defended itself like a wounded animal bearing fangs. Gunfire echoed through the streets. Screams, yells, the clash of metal and fury. Jesse moved through it all with the grim focus of a man who died once and didn't fear dying again. He dropped one rider, then another. His shoulder bled from a graze, but he didn't stop. Mariah fought beside him. When her shotgun emptied, she used a hammer. She fought like someone who remembered chains and refused to wear them again. But the riders were many. Jesse saw Dillard fall, chest torn open. Saw the baker's son lose his leg to a shotgun blast. Blood soaked the ground, but the townsfolk held. Then the leader came for Jesse. They met near the blacksmith's, smoke rising around them. The man was tall, cruel, and silent. He raised a saber, not a gun, and charged. Jesse barely blocked it with his rifle, the metal singing with the clash. They fought hand to hand, punches echoing louder than bullets. The man struck Jesse hard across the jaw, then again knocking him to his knees. "You buried a brother?" he growled. "I'll bury a town." Jesse spat blood. "Try." He lunged forward, grabbing the saber's hilt, twisting. The man resisted, strong as stone, but Jesse drove his shoulder forward, using momentum to send them both crashing into the fire pit. The man screamed, flames licking his coat. Jesse rolled free, grabbed the fallen rifle, and fired point blank. The leader dropped. The rest of the riders faltered. Jesse stood in the street, burned, bleeding, but unbowed. He raised his rifle to the sky and fired once, twice. The message was clear. Retreat or join your leader in hell. One by one, the black-clad men turned and rode. When the smoke cleared, Bent Hollow still stood. Wounded, yes. Blood on its boards. Tears in its dirt. But alive. That night they lit no fires. Too many wounds to tend. Too much silence. Jesse stood by the church steps, staring at the bodies lined in rows. Mariah stood beside him, arm in a sling. Lily approached, dirty but unhurt. Jesse dropped to a knee. "Are you afraid?" he asked her. She shook her head. "Were you?" He paused. Then said, "I was afraid of not coming back." Lily hugged him tight. Later, Jesse sat alone, locket in hand. He opened it once more, saw the faces of two boys who'd once made a promise. One had died trying to keep it. The other was still learning how. Mariah came to him, sat quietly. "What now?" she asked. Jesse didn't answer right away. Then he said, "We rebuild." She nodded. "And if more come?" He looked out into the dark, toward where the hills met the sky. "Then we remind them what happens when they ride into Bent Hollow." He stood. For the first time, the wind didn't feel like a warning. It felt like applause. The West hadn't changed. But Jesse had.